The Champions League is now one match away from coming to its conclusion. So you have now joined the Champions League recap show. Which means you probably got baited a little bit. But whatever I put in the thumbnail is definitely something I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about. Let's be honest, I probably put Manchester City in the thumbnail. I think that's where we'd want to go with this. But we're at least going to touch on every single result. So if you weren't paying attention or you didn't know the full picture of what happened, this video is going to help you out with that. Wow, this is like the most organized video we've ever done on this channel. Let's not ruin it. Atalanta against Sturm Graz was the first match. Well, at least one of the matches in the opening window. Atalanta with a 5-0 win. Sturm Graz, I'm be honest. Austrian champions, right? They stunned Salzburg in the last Austrian season. They have not had a very inspiring Champions League run. Because of the nature of the standings of this whole thing, you're able to stay alive for a while, but Sturm Graz has lost 6 of their 7 matches. Their only wins over Girona, who's also had an absolutely terrible tournament. So not a surprise Atalanta was able to pick up the win. It was a win that Atalanta desperately needs if they're going to finish top 8 as well, because their final match is against Barcelona. And going up against Barca, they're one of the 2 teams that has a chance to win the group. That doesn't guarantee anything, but maybe good news for Atalanta. Barcelona is one of the 2 teams in the entire table that is mathematically guaranteed to finish in the top 8, which means there's actually nothing left for them to play for. They're going to skip the playoff round, be seeded for the last 16, and that could give Atalanta the chance to pick up at least a draw, but probably going to need a win to get up to 17 points. So a win, they're guaranteed through. With the draw, they're on 15, and like all these teams would have to pick up wins to kind of jump over them. But what a performance from Atalanta. Again, one of those clubs that just plays Football Manager in real life. I say again because I feel like I say that in every video that I talk about Atalanta with. Monaco and Aston Villa. Very, very interesting match here. Monaco needed the 3 points to have a chance at the top 8. Aston Villa could have put itself in a commanding position to get a top 8 finish, but they lost. Wilfried Singo, he scores the early goal, and despite the fact that they whipped out their John Duran, which we know can be a big deal in the second half, nothing happened for Villa. So now they're both basically sitting right next to each other going into their last match. Villa's got Celtic, another team that's guaranteed to be through. They are guaranteed in the playoff, but Celtic, with a win, could get top 8. There's a whole lot of shuffling that could go on. There's a lot of tiers to this as well, just so you understand. If you finish 16-9, you are seeded for the playoff round, so that's technically better. As far as I understand it, you get your second match at home, and you're allegedly playing the worst teams, even though it looks like the PSG, potentially Man City, and potentially Real Madrid will be down in the unseeded teams category, so you could be a seeded team that gets to play one of those sides, which would suck. If you're Aston Villa or Monaco, you're going into this final match, and Monaco's playing against Inter, who's basically 1 point away from guaranteeing a top 8 finish, but is probably in the top 8 with a loss anyways. Monaco and Villa are playing to get out of that. They're playing to get into the top 8, in which case they would be into the round of 16, seeded for the round of 16, ready to rock and roll. Villa could have Villa. If they'd won this, they'd be on 16 points and on the same level as Inter right now with a solid goal difference. This is a bitter pill to swallow for Aston Villa that they fumbled this one. Atletico Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen. Madrid had a terrible start to this tournament, but they've managed to turn it around, and this was a huge result for them because they were down a goal and a man. They were the red card 23rd minute. Piero Hincapié scoring in the right before halftime for Bayer Leverkusen. Type of match that Leverkusen would not have blown last year. And Bayer Leverkusen now is staring up at Atletico Madrid, which is unbelievable. Atletico Madrid has won 4 consecutive matches against PSG, Sparta Prague, Slovan Bratislava, and Bayer Leverkusen to now go clear into the top 8. That shows you how quickly things can change. Because after the first 3 matches, they had 1 win in 3. They were looking bad. Now they are looking everything but bad. Bayer Leverkusen is the sorting hat team. Their final match is going to be against Sparta Prague, though. So you can pencil, not pen, but pencil Bayer Leverkusen in the top 8 if they can win against Sparta Prague, unless they, get out goal differenced by somebody pretty dramatically here. They're going to be through. Bayer Leverkusen's got a 90-something% chance of finishing top 8 if they win that match, and they've got a 90-something% chance of winning that match. I don't feel like doing the rest of the math. There was Bologna against Dortmund. The Sandwich beat their German opposition 2-1, in a result that for them Still doesn't matter. Based off results that happened elsewhere, Bologna they're out. They have no chance to make it into the top 24, even though they've got 4 points from their last 2, which makes this just a very disappointing result for Dortmund, who had 12 points after 5 matches and now have 12 points after 7, dropping out of the top 8 and potentially going into their last match against Shakhtar Donetsk. We got to be honest, they're going to be at a similar level that Bologna's at, could fall out of the top 16, in which case they would be an unseeded team going into the playoff round. If they win, they could still flip it around and finish in the top 8. There is a lot of mobility when you consider that everything highlighted here is within 1 point. From 18th to 8th is all within 1 point. So it's there, and Dortmund's got one of the easier matches that could have. Shakhtar Donetsk is playing for something technically, but they need basically to win by 5 goals mathematically, which they're going into this match knowing that's probably not going to happen. So Dortmund's, hopefully for them, going to be able to take advantage of that. Then there's Club Brugge and Juventus. This was a nice, crisp 0-0 draw. Club Brugge is unbeaten in its last 19. That's a really fun fact in all competitions. And as a result, they have put themselves in position to make it through to the knockouts. They are still going to be playing hell for leather going into this last match. The problem for Club Brugge is their final match is Manchester City. And if Man City beats Club Brugge, they would jump ahead of them going into the knockouts. Now, Club Brugge is guaranteed to go through. Mathematically speaking, Club Brugge is guaranteed to go through because the only 2 teams that can catch them on points are City and Dinamo Zagreb. So this draw against Juventus was huge. It also holds Juventus down. It's basically a missed opportunity for them, considering they're going into their final match of this against Benfica, who's playing technically for survival. Any one of these teams, Benfica, PSG, Sporting, or Stuttgart, they're all uncomfortable with Man City and Dinamo Zagreb kind of looking up at them because they can get outpointed by those 2 teams. So Benfica's got a lot to play for. Juventus needs a win and a lot of help to get into the top 8. It's still there, but boy, they wish they could have this match back. PSV and Red Star. That was 3-2 to PSV. Bit of a weird game. PSV scored 3 in the first half. Fairman had a couple of assists, including one that he got from a corner where he was being pelted by snowballs, and that went viral. And then PSV gets a red card on a bird, Flamingo here, and they give up 2 goals, and Red Star nearly manages to pull off the giant comeback, only stopped by the fact they brought in the American Ricardo Pepi in the 86th minute. That's what kept PSV safe. But the Dutch teams have given a decent showing, and PSV's win puts them in 19th. And does guarantee that they will be in the playoff round of the Champions League. So that's great news for them. They're going up against Liverpool in the last match, so they really needed this win. It was clutch that they held on to it. Red Star was out before this match. They're just playing for pride going into their final match, which will be against Young Boys. So that is a winning opportunity. Young Boys and Slovan Bratislava are the only 2 teams without a point in the competition after 7 matches. And speaking of Liverpool, they did win. Mo Salah, then Harvey Elliott after a red card to Lille. Lille's been great in this competition, but they have slowly faded out of the top 8, and now they're out of it. They are looking up at Bayer Leverkusen, Atalanta, AC Milan, Atletico Madrid as teams that they could catch, and their final match is against Feyenoord, the team right next to them. So that's basically a 6-pointer. Whoever wins that match has a chance at the top 8, but a disappointing fall for Lille, who started this competition getting wins over teams like Real Madrid. In the final match of the opening day was Stuttgart against Slovan Bratislava. Stuttgart had to win this match, and they did. Slovan, of course, on 0 points still, and Stuttgart is now the team keeping Manchester City out. Their final match is against PSG, though, which that's a bit of a sorting hat match, and it opens an opportunity for Man City. It means mathematically the worst case scenario for Man City is Stuttgart and PSG draw, I guess, and then they're both on 11 points, and Man City needs to win regardless. But the good news is because PSG and Stuttgart are playing each other and kind of working this out in real time here, Manchester City will go through if they win. No doubt about it, they will go through if they win against Club Brugge, but Club Brugge is unbeaten in their last 19. The piece de resistance of the opening day, though, was Benfica against Barcelona. This game was fucking wild, right? I had people all over my mentions about, refereeing controversy. Certainly looked like the guy in Benfica was fouled leading up to Barcelona's final goal. But to be honest, my initial take from this match and watching the extended highlights of this match, I wasn't able to watch it live. this is just one of those games where you go to the park and by the time it ends, you feel like you've lived 9 lives, right? So many different things have happened. Benfica had a 3-1 lead at halftime, then 3-2, then 4-2, then 4-3, then 4-4, and then Rafinha. I mean, they're like the goals that were being scored, the goalkeepers were terrible, and these are 2 goalkeepers that have serious pedigree. There was one goal that Rafinha scored, this goal to make it 3-2, and Trubin just, it was like a goal kick that hit Rafinha in the back, and for some reason, I guess he'd been working out or something. It went off it hit a wall and just right into the corner. I mean, you couldn't do it if you tried to recreate it 100 times for a YouTube video. It was just a complete freak game where, of course, the final goal, there's just a dog pile in the box because Benfica's trying to score the winner, and then all of a sudden it kicks free, and Rafinha, boy, he's turned into a better player than you would have thought, scores the goal that all of a sudden gives Barcelona the guaranteed spot through. In Benfica, if they'd won that match, they would have had a legitimate opportunity to try to push for the top 8, but now they are still not technically safe, right? If Dinamo Zagreb and Manchester City both win and Benfica loses, there's a real chance Benfica could go out. But who do they play? Juventus, who again, they're playing for all sorts of positioning things, whether it be top 8 or being a seeded team or whatever is going to end up happening. That brings us to the Wednesday. RB Leipzig beats Sporting. This is a huge miss for Sporting because RB Leipzig in their first 6 matches had lost every single one of them. I don't know what's going on with them. They're having a perfectly fine year up to their expectations in the Bundesliga, right? They're in Champions League positions. They were last time I checked, right? But they have not been able to do anything in the Champions League. They were already out. Sporting's just trying to become safe, but they've lost to Arsenal, they lost to Club Brugge, and now they've lost to RB Leipzig. Emery, I mean, honestly, the team he left is doing poorly. The team he joined is doing poorly. It's just a bad day to be associated with Emery in general. And Sporting's in the same position as Benfica. If they go out in that last match and they lose to Bologna, and Man City and Dinamo Zagreb both win, that could knock them out. Even if it's just Manchester City, Stuttgart and PSG draw, Benfica gets a win, Manchester City would then trade spots with Sporting, eliminating a team that was comfortably in the top 8 at one point in this competition. I mean, this is a horrific loss just based off of the standings going around. It is not, however, a horrific loss based off the talent of the 2 teams. You'd honestly maybe say RB Leipzig based off domestic performance so far this season. Maybe RB Leipzig would be the favorite. Just in this competition, they certainly weren't. Thierry Henry's favorite team, Brest, lost 2-0 to Shakhtar Donetsk, who are basically already out. Brest, of course, one of the teams that was a surprise inclusion in the top 8 at periods in this Champions League run. They are now, they're going to the final match with a chance, but they're playing Real Madrid, who also has a chance to try and backdoor a spot in the top 8. That is a top 8 6-pointer. Try and get up to 15 or 16 points and give yourselves a chance. But it looks like Stade Brestois is going to end up where everyone would have assumed they were going to end up, which is somewhere in the playoff from 9 to 24. AC Milan and Girona. Girona was a bit of a one-season wonder last year. The AC Milan able to take care of business, trying to get themselves a top 8 finish. They are absolutely rocking. They've put together 5 consecutive wins after losing their first 2 matches, so shout out to them and Captain America. Arsenal beat Dinamo Zagreb. This was the gravy match for Arsenal for Dinamo Zagreb coming into this. They knew they probably needed to win one of their last 2. The last one's against AC Milan. None of it was going to be easy, but Dinamo Zagreb needs to win that match in order to get into the knockouts. Arsenal, this very taking care of business kind of performance. You get a second-minute goal, control the match from there. Congratulations to them. And also congratulations to Celtic, who are in the Champions League knockouts for the first time in over 10 years. One of the big clubs in Europe that kind of had its heyday a while ago, but it's trying to battle its way back in. Well, they've gone unbeaten, as you can see, in their last 5, and the win over Young Boys, it was hard fought. I mean, it's not like Celtic's out here overwhelming teams with talent. It was an 86th minute own goal at home against Young Boys out of Switzerland. But it's enough, right? And they are guaranteed through on 12 points. Final match against Aston Villa, who's going to be coming in hungry. If Celtic wins it, they technically have a shot to finish top 8. They are not out of that yet, but Aston Villa, I would make big favorites for that because they have an even better chance to go through. Feyenoord, Bayern Munich. Yeah. This was an FMing. I mean, it obviously was an FMing. It was. They got out XG'd, not by a ton. They got outshot 30-8, and Bayern Munich had 80% possession. But sometimes every dog has their day, and this was Feyenoord's day, and they win 3-0, and they stun Bayern Munich. And Feyenoord's ahead of Bayern Munich in the table now after that insane win. And they play Lille, and if they win that match, they will have an unbelievable backdoor opportunity to get into the top 8. For Bayern Munich, they basically fumbled it. They had their wins coming in. They'd been on the run. They beat Benfica. They beat PSG. They beat Shakhtar. And their final match is coming against Slovan Bratislava. So that's a match that Bayern Munich is very likely to win. They could have guaranteed themselves a position in the top 8 if they just hadn't been absolutely smacked around by Feyenoord. So when they're dragged into the playoff here, just remember, the reason they're there is because of this brutal match against Feyenoord. Real Madrid against Salzburg. Salzburg didn't even win Austria last year. They've been on the downswing. This is not the team that was making Champions League's rounds of 16s. They've got one win in this whole competition. Weirdly enough, it was against Feyenoord. But Real Madrid needs a couple of wins in a row to try and get into the top 8. They got their win. We'll see what they can do in their final match against Stade Brestois, where they are definitely going to be big favorites. And Inter beat Sparta Prague. Sparta Prague, one of those happy to be there type teams. Inter takes advantage. Them and AC Milan and Atalanta, 3 Italian teams looking comfortable in the top 8 right now, although Atalanta's not that comfortable. In Sparta Prague, with their 4 points, technically if they'd won this match, they would still mathematically be alive. They didn't. They lost. They're out. And that brings us to PSG and Manchester City, which, holy shit, first time in 115 matches or so, which is an ironic number, of course, for Manchester City, that they have taken a 2-goal lead, at least 2-goal lead, and actually blown it and lost. And PSG needed this. This was my favorite match of this entire tie because both of these teams are basically in the same situation. They are unthinkably staring at the abyss of not qualifying for the playoff round in the top 24 of this competition. And whoever lost this match was going to be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Okay, in PSG, if they'd lost this match, would have been on 7 points, right? They would have needed a loss from one of these other teams and a win in their final match, which is against Stuttgart, who's also playing for basically the same thing here. It's not like they had Slovan Bratislava waiting for them at the end of the line. And they go down 2 goals, show a ton of heart. Man City falls apart. The crowd in Paris was absolutely amazing. Then that, I'm sure, helped will them on to victory. But Man City's weird inability to actually control and shut down matches has continued and put them in a position where they have to beat Club Brugge on the final day. In PSG, if Man City and Dinamo Zagreb don't win, PSG's through no matter what happens against Stuttgart. But PSG will go into that match as the favorite, and they showed the right stuff. In this match, you go down 2 goals in a match where you are staring into the abyss, and you're able to pull that out and end up, obviously, the last goal was kind of a fluky one, but you were able to pull that out 3-2 and then 4-2 with the last second goal. That I was impressed with what PSG was able to do. And in the possibility of Manchester City not making the knockouts is still alive, well, the possibility of PSG missing out on the knockouts is very faint. They would need to lose to Stuttgart, okay, and then they would need, there's so many different possibilities, right? But if Benfica loses by more, then they would go below PSG. There's also whatever's going to happen with Sporting, and they're playing against Bologna. Does Dinamo Zagreb win? They're unlikely to win. They're playing AC Milan. But if they do, they throw a wrench into this whole thing and could knock PSG out as well. But if I am a PSG fan, I'm feeling very comfortable. And that is what happened in the Champions League. And the final day is going to be pure chaos. Can't wait.